Look at that. That's the fat pig we have to put up with. Those words came from my own daughter. Her name was Sophie, and she was pointing right at me in front of 200 people at her fancy wedding. Everyone in that huge, sparkling ballroom started laughing. Not little giggles. Big, mean laughs that echoed off the golden walls and crystal chandeliers. If you're loving this story already, please hit that like button, share it with someone who needs to hear this, and subscribe so you never miss these incredible true stories. I stood there in my cheap wine-colored dress that cost me $30 from the thrift store. My hands were shaking. I was holding a small gift I had wrapped so carefully with dollar store paper and a ribbon I saved from last Christmas. My face felt hot with shame. My heart was breaking into a million pieces. Sophie's new husband, Daniel, stood next to her in his expensive tuxedo. He was smirking. His rich family was all around us, wearing clothes that probably cost more than most people make in a month. They looked at me like I was a stray dog that had wandered into their perfect, beautiful party. I wanted to disappear. I wanted the floor to open up and swallow me whole. But then something impossible happened. Mr. Blackwell, Daniel's father, suddenly stopped laughing. He was a tall man with gray hair, wearing a suit that probably cost thousands of dollars. He had been chuckling along with everyone else, but now his face went completely white. His eyes locked onto my face like he'd seen a ghost. "Wait," he whispered, so quietly I almost couldn't hear him. He took a step toward me while everyone else was still laughing and pointing.
"Wait.
Aren't you my new boss?" The laughter started to die down. People began to notice something strange was happening. My name is Martha Hayes, but everyone calls me Marty. I am 66 years old, and for the last 30 years, I have lived like a shadow, like someone nobody really sees or cares about. Let me tell you my story. When Sophie was just 12 years old, my husband died in a terrible car accident. One day he was there, laughing and playing with our daughter. The next day he was gone. Just like that. Our whole world fell apart. Suddenly, I was alone with a young girl to raise, and no money.
None.
We had nothing saved up. The bills kept coming, but the paycheck stopped. I had to find work fast. The only job I could get was cleaning offices at night. You know those big, fancy office buildings downtown? The ones with marble floors and glass walls? I cleaned those. I scrubbed toilets. I emptied trash cans. I mopped floors on my hands and knees. I worked from 10 p.m. until 6 a.m., 5 nights a week. Sometimes 6 when I needed extra money. Every night, I took 3 different buses to get to work. It took me 2 hours just to get there, and 2 hours to get home. That's 4 hours on buses, breathing in exhaust fumes, getting home just in time to make Sophie breakfast before school. I bought all my clothes from Goodwill and garage sales. My shoes had holes in them that I covered with cardboard. My hands became rough and red from all the harsh cleaning chemicals. They hurt all the time, but I couldn't stop working. Sophie grew up watching me struggle. And instead of seeing how hard I was trying, she became ashamed of me. She was embarrassed that her mom was just a cleaning lady. She was embarrassed by my old car that broke down all the time. She was embarrassed by my worn-out clothes and my tired face. When she was in high school, she stopped inviting me to school events. She told her friends her mother worked in an office building but never said I was cleaning it. When I showed up to her graduation, she barely looked at me. "Why do you have to dress like that?" she'd hiss at me. "Why can't you be like normal moms?" It broke my heart every single time. But I understood. She wanted to fit in. She wanted to be accepted by the other kids whose parents had nice cars and nice houses. I kept working, kept scrubbing, kept riding those 3 buses every night. But here's what Sophie never knew. Here's what nobody knew. While I was cleaning those fancy offices in the middle of the night, I was listening. You see, rich people think cleaning ladies are invisible. They think we can't hear them. They think we don't understand what they're talking about. They talk about everything right in front of us, like we're furniture. I would be emptying a trash can, and executives would be having late-night meetings right there. They talked about their business deals, their investments, their secrets, which companies were about to make it big. which stocks were about to explode, which real estate was about to become valuable. And I listened to every single word. I started writing things down in a little notebook I kept in my cleaning cart. Company names, stock tips, investment ideas. I took that notebook home every single morning and read about those companies during the day while Sophie was at school. I went to the library and read books about investing, about business, about money. I learned everything I could. And then, with the first $50 I managed to save, I bought my first stock. Just $50. That's all I had. But that $50 turned into $75, then $100, then $200. I kept cleaning, kept listening, kept learning, kept investing. I bought my clothes from thrift stores so I could invest more. I ate simple meals, rice, beans, cheap vegetables so I could save more. I never went on vacation. Never bought anything nice for myself. Never. Every single penny went into investments. I worked a second job on weekends, cleaning houses. Then a third job, doing laundry for a hotel. I was so tired I could barely stand, but I kept going. My apartment was tiny, just 2 small bedrooms, but it was filled with books about finance that I found in the trash at those fancy offices. Rich people throw away perfectly good books. I rescued them and read every single one. At night, after my cleaning shift, I would come home at 6 a.m., make Sophie breakfast, get her off to school, and then sit at my old, scratched-up desk and manage my investments. Nobody knew. Sophie thought I just cleaned and slept. That's it. But the truth? The truth was that over 20 years, I had built something incredible. I bought properties using different company names so nobody would know they were mine. I invested in small companies that everyone else ignored and watched them grow big. I became a silent partner in business deals that made millions. My bank account grew and grew and grew. Numbers that most people couldn't even imagine. But I still wore my thrift store clothes. Still rode those 3 buses. Still lived in my tiny apartment. I was building an empire in secret. And now, at my daughter's wedding, standing in that ballroom full of people who thought I was nothing, Mr. Blackwell had just recognized my face. Because 2 weeks ago, I had bought his entire company for $45 million. $45 million. And he had no idea that the mysterious buyer named M.J. Hartman Enterprises was me. The cleaning lady. The woman his family had just laughed at. I could see his brain working, trying to make sense of it. His hands were shaking as he pulled out his phone, scrolling frantically through emails. The ballroom was getting quieter now. People sensed something was happening. Something big. Sophie rushed over, her white wedding dress swishing around her legs. "What are you talking about, Mr. Blackwell?" She used that fake sweet voice she always used around rich people. "This is just my mother, Martha. You know, the one who cleans buildings." She laughed, but her eyes were confused and scared. Mr. Blackwell's face had gone from white to gray. He looked like he might faint. "You," he whispered, staring at me. "You're the one who bought Blackwell Corporation. You own my company now." And just like that, my secret was out. After 20 years of silence, after decades of being invisible and ignored, my moment had finally arrived. Everything was about to change forever. Let me take you back to where it all really began. The night my husband died, I remember sitting in our kitchen with exactly $247 in my bank account. That was it. That was everything we had in the whole world. The funeral cost $6,000. I had to borrow money from the bank just to bury my husband. Can you imagine that? Having to go into debt just to say goodbye to the person you love most? After the funeral, I had bills everywhere. The rent was due. The electricity bill. The water bill. Sophie needed school supplies and clothes because she was growing so fast. I needed gas money to look for work. I was drowning in debt and fear. That first night I started cleaning offices, I cried the whole time. My knees hurt from kneeling on hard floors. My back ached from bending over. My hands stung from the chemicals. I was 36 years old, and I felt like my life was over. But then something changed everything. It was about 2 a.m. on my third night of work. I was cleaning the big conference room on the 15th floor of this fancy building downtown. Two men in expensive suits were still there, drinking coffee and looking at papers spread all over the table. They barely glanced at me when I came in with my cleaning cart. To them, I was invisible, just part of the furniture. "The Anderson deal is going to make us rich," one of them said, laughing. "Their stock is only $3 right now, but once the merger announcement hits next month, it'll jump to at least $15, maybe $20. The other man nodded. "I'm putting every spare dollar I have into Anderson Technologies. This is insider information, Tom. We can't lose." I kept cleaning, moving slowly, acting like I couldn't hear them or didn't care. But inside, my heart was racing. Anderson Technologies. Stock at $3. Going to $15 or $20. I wrote it down in my little notebook as soon as I left that room. The next day, while Sophie was at school, I went to the library. This was before everyone had computers at home, remember? I had to go to the library to use their computers and look things up. I researched Anderson Technologies for 3 hours. I read everything I could find. And you know what? Everything those men said checked out. The company was solid. The merger made sense. This could really work. I had exactly $50 left after paying that month's bills. $50. That's all. Most people would say, "Martha, you're crazy. You need that money for food, for emergencies." But something inside me said, take the risk. I opened a small investment account and bought stock in Anderson Technologies with my last $50. I bought exactly 16 shares at $3.12 each. Then I waited. I kept cleaning, kept listening, kept watching. For weeks later, the merger was announced. The stock price exploded overnight. It went from $3 to $17 in one day. My $50 had turned into $272. I sold those shares immediately and cried with happiness. That was more money than I'd ever had at one time since my husband died. But here's what I did next that changed everything. I didn't spend that money. Not one penny. I took that $272 and I invested it again. Over the next 6 months, I overheard 3 more business conversations while cleaning. 3 more stock tips. 3 more opportunities. Some of them worked, some didn't. But slowly, my money grew. $272 became $580. $580 became $1,200. $1,200 became $3,400. It took me 2 years to turn that first $50 into $10,000. 2 years of working 3 jobs, living on almost nothing, and investing every single penny I could save. Sophie was 14 by then. She was starting to notice that other kids had nicer things than she did. Better phones. Better clothes. Better everything. "Mom, why are we so poor?" she asked me one night. "Why can't you get a better job?" I wanted to tell her so badly. I wanted to say, "Sophie, I'm building something amazing for us. Just wait." But I couldn't, because if I told her, she might tell someone, or she might want me to spend the money, or something might go wrong. So I just hugged her and said, "I'm doing the best I can, sweetie." She pulled away from me. "Your best isn't good enough," she said. Those words cut me like a knife. But I kept going. By the time Sophie was 16, I had $50,000 in investments. $50,000. And she had no idea. I was still cleaning offices. Still wearing thrift store clothes. Still riding 3 buses to work. But during the day, while she was at school, I was managing a growing investment portfolio that most adults would be proud to have. I started buying small properties. Rundown houses that nobody wanted. I fixed them up myself, painting, cleaning, doing simple repairs, and then I rented them out. I created different business names so nobody would connect them to me. Sunrise Properties. Mountain View Holdings. Riverside Investments. Each property brought in rental income. And that rental income went right back into more investments. It was like a snowball rolling down a hill, getting bigger and bigger and bigger. By the time Sophie graduated high school, I had invested in 12 different properties and had over $200,000 in stocks and bonds. She decided to go to the state university. It was a good school, but she was embarrassed about it. Her rich friends were going to private colleges that cost $60,000 a year. I have to go to state school because my mom is just a cleaning lady, she told her friends. I overheard her on the phone one night. My heart broke again. I could have paid for any college she wanted. I could have sent her to Harvard.
To Yale.
Anywhere. But I couldn't reveal my secret yet. The timing wasn't right. I wasn't ready. So I let her think we were poor. I let her be embarrassed. I let her resent me. And I kept building. In college, Sophie met new friends from wealthy families. She started coming home less and less. When she did visit, she looked at our tiny apartment with disgust. "How can you still live here?" she'd say. "This place is so small and old." I'd smile and say, "It's home, Sophie. It's enough for me." What she didn't know was that I owned the entire building. I had bought it 3 years earlier. I was everyone's landlord, including my own. By the time Sophie was 23, I had built an empire worth over $15 million. $15 million. I owned 47 properties. I had invested in 23 different companies. I was a silent partner in 4 successful businesses. And I still lived in that same tiny apartment, wearing the same thrift store clothes, riding the same 3 buses to my cleaning job.
Why?
Why did I keep living like I was poor? Because I had learned something important about money. It's not about what you show people. It's about what you build when nobody's watching. Rich people who show off their money often lose it. They spend it on cars and clothes and parties. They want everyone to know they're rich. But truly wealthy people? They stay quiet. They keep building. They multiply their money instead of spending it. I wanted to be truly wealthy. Not just rich for a few years. Wealthy for life. Wealthy enough that my daughter and her children and their children would never have to worry about money. Even if Sophie didn't appreciate me now, one day she would understand. Or at least that's what I told myself. When Sophie turned 25, she started dating Daniel Blackwell. He came from old money. His family owned businesses and properties all over the state. She was so excited. She called me and said, "Mom, I finally found someone successful. Someone who can give me the life I deserve. Not like." She trailed off, but I knew what she meant. "Not like you, Mom. Not poor like you." I swallowed my hurt and said, "I'm happy for you, Sophie." 6 months later, Daniel proposed. Sophie was over the moon. But when she told me about the wedding plans, my heart sank. "It's going to be huge, Mom. The Blackwell family is paying for everything. It's going to be at the Grand Metropolitan Ballroom. 200 guests. A 10-piece orchestra. The best of everything." "That sounds wonderful," I said. "I can't wait." There was a long pause on the phone. "Mom," Sophie said slowly. "About the wedding? I need to ask you something." "What is it, sweetie? Can you maybe just come to the ceremony but not the reception? The Blackwells are really fancy, and I don't want."
She didn't finish.
I felt like someone had punched me in the stomach. My own daughter didn't want me at her wedding reception because she was ashamed of me. "I'll be there for everything, Sophie," I said firmly. "I'm your mother. I wouldn't miss any part of your wedding day."
She sighed. "Fine.
But please try to, I don't know, look nice? Maybe buy a decent dress?" I bought the best dress I could find at Goodwill. $30. Wine-colored. It fit okay. And 2 weeks before the wedding, I did something that would change everything. Blackwell Corporation, the company owned by Daniel's family, had been struggling financially. They were looking for a buyer. The company was worth about $40 million, but they were willing to sell for $35 million to the right buyer. I offered them $45 million through one of my business entities, MJ Hartman Enterprises. They accepted immediately. They were thrilled. They had no idea who MJ Hartman really was. They had no idea it was the cleaning lady. They had no idea it was Sophie's poor mother. And now, standing in that ballroom at my daughter's wedding, watching Mr. Blackwell's face turn gray as he realized the truth. My secret was finally coming out, and nothing would ever be the same again. Mr. Blackwell's hands were shaking so badly he almost dropped his phone. He held it up, showing the screen to his wife, Mrs. Victoria Blackwell, who was standing nearby in her pearl necklace and designer gown. "Victoria," he whispered, his voice cracking. "This is her. This is MJ Hartman." Mrs. Blackwell looked at me, then at the phone, then back at me. Her mouth fell open. "That's impossible," she said loudly. "That woman is a cleaning lady. Daniel told us she scrubs toilets for a living." The whole ballroom went completely silent. You could have heard a pin drop on that marble floor. 200 guests turned to stare at us. The orchestra stopped playing. Even the waiters froze in place, holding their trays of champagne. Sophie's face went from confused to terrified in about 2 seconds. "What are you talking about?" she demanded, grabbing her father-in-law's arm. "My mother doesn't own anything. She barely has enough money to pay rent. She's poor." Mr. Blackwell pulled away from her and walked closer to me. His eyes were wide, like he was looking at an alien from outer space. 2 weeks ago, he said slowly, speaking to the entire room now, someone bought Blackwell Corporation for $45 million. The buyer's name was MJ Hartman Enterprises. We've been doing video calls, signing contracts, negotiating terms. He pointed at me with a trembling finger. And this woman was on those video calls. This woman signed those contracts. This woman now owns my family's company. A wave of gasps swept through the ballroom like wind through trees. Sophie stumbled backward.
"No," she said. "No, no, and no."
"That's not possible. My mom is broke. She lives in a tiny apartment. She rides the bus everywhere. She wears clothes from Goodwill. I do all those things," I said quietly. My voice came out stronger than I expected. "But that doesn't mean I'm broke, Sophie." Daniel, my new son-in-law, laughed nervously. "This is ridiculous. Dad, you must be confused. This woman can't possibly." "Show them," Mr. Blackwell shouted suddenly, making everyone jump. He thrust his phone toward me. "Show them your identification. Show them the signature on the contracts. Prove to them who you are." I reached into my small purse, the one I'd carried for 10 years, and pulled out my wallet. From inside, I took out a business card. It was simple. White background, black letters. MJ Hartman Enterprises. Martha Jane Hartman, CEO. Real Estate and Investment Holdings. I handed it to Sophie. She stared at it like it was written in a foreign language. Her hands started shaking just like her father-in-law's. "Martha Jane," she whispered. "MJ. Those are your initials." "Yes," I said simply. But how?" Sophie's voice was getting higher and higher. "You're a cleaning lady. You don't have any money. We've been poor my whole life." "We were never poor, Sophie," I said gently. "I just chose to live simply while I built something bigger." Mrs. Blackwell pushed forward, her face red with anger. "This is some kind of trick. Some kind of scam. You probably stole someone's identity or—" "I can prove everything," I interrupted her calmly. I pulled out my phone, not the old flip phone Sophie knew about, but my business smartphone that I kept hidden in my cleaning cart at work. I opened my banking app and turned the screen toward them. The account balance showed $52,847,392.18. $52 million. More gasps. Someone in the crowd screamed a little. Sophie's legs seemed to give out. Daniel caught her before she fell. That's not real," Sophie stammered. "That can't be real." Mr. Blackwell had pulled out his laptop now. He was typing frantically. "Let me check our corporate records. The sale documents. The wire transfers." Everyone waited. The silence was so heavy it felt like the air itself was pressing down on us. After what felt like forever, Mr. Blackwell looked up. His face was completely white now. "It's all true," he announced to the room. Martha Jane Hartman, also known as MJ Hartman, owner of 47 residential and commercial properties across 3 states, major stockholder in 23 corporations, Silent partner in multiple successful businesses. Total estimated worth. He paused, swallowing hard. Total estimated worth, approximately $85 million. The ballroom exploded with noise. Everyone started talking at once. People were pulling out their phones, probably trying to look me up online. Others were whispering to each other with shocked expressions. Sophie sank into a chair, her beautiful white wedding dress pooling around her like a cloud. She was staring at me like she'd never seen me before. 85 million? She repeated. You have $85 million? Give or take, I said softly. Daniel was pacing back and forth, running his hands through his perfectly styled hair. This doesn't make sense. If you had all this money, why were you cleaning toilets? Why were you living in that horrible little apartment? Why did you let Sophie think you were poor? That was the question, wasn't it? The question I'd been asking myself for 20 years. I took a deep breath. Because I needed to learn, I said. When my husband died, I had nothing. No skills. No education past high school. No connections. The only job I could get was cleaning offices. I looked around at all those rich, judgmental faces staring at me. But while I cleaned those offices, I learned that rich people talk about everything in front of the help. They think we're invisible. They think we're too stupid to understand what they're saying. So they discuss their business deals, their investments, their secrets. I smiled a little. I listened. I learned. I studied. And I used that knowledge to build something real. Something that would last. But why keep it a secret? Sophie cried out. Why let me think we were poor? Do you know how embarrassing it was? Do you know how much I suffered? Her words hit me like arrows. You suffered? I said quietly. Sophie, you had food every day. You had a warm home. You had clothes and school supplies and everything you needed. You were never hungry, never cold, never in danger. But I wasn't rich, she shouted. My friends had nice things. They went on vacations. They had cars and designer clothes and what did those things teach them? I interrupted. Did they learn the value of money? Did they learn to work hard? Did they learn that real wealth isn't about showing off? Sophie stared at me, her mouth opening and closing like a fish. I wanted you to grow up strong. I continued. I wanted you to understand that money isn't everything. That character matters. That how you treat people matters. I looked around the ballroom at all the rich guests who had been laughing at me just minutes ago. But instead, you learned to be ashamed of your mother. You learned to judge people by their clothes and their cars. You learned that poor people aren't worth respecting. Sophie's face crumpled. Tears started running down her cheeks, ruining her expensive makeup. I wasn't trying to, she sobbed. Mrs. Blackwell stepped forward, her face still tight with anger. Well, I think it's cruel what you did, making your daughter think you were poor. What kind of mother does that? A mother who wanted her daughter to build character, I said firmly. A mother who didn't want to raise a spoiled brat who thinks money grows on trees. I turned back to Sophie. Do you know what I was going to do after your wedding, Sophie? I was going to tell you everything. I had it all planned. I was going to reveal the truth, pay off your student loans, set up a trust fund for you and your future children, and teach you how to manage real wealth. Sophie looked up at me with red, swollen eyes. But then you called me a fat pig in front of all these people, I said, my voice breaking a little. You pointed at me and laughed. You treated me like I was garbage. The room went silent again. And I realized, I continued, that maybe I made a mistake. Maybe by keeping my secret for so long, I taught you the wrong lesson. Maybe I created the very thing I was trying to prevent. Mr. Blackwell cleared his throat awkwardly. Miss Hartman, I am so sorry for laughing at you. If I had known, you would have treated me differently? I finished for him. You would have been nice to me if you knew I had money? He opened his mouth, then closed it. He had no answer for that. That's the problem, isn't it? I said, looking around at everyone. People only respect you if you're rich. If you're poor, you're invisible. You're nothing. I picked up my small gift from where I'd set it down on a table, the one I'd wrapped so carefully in dollar store paper. This gift, I said, holding it up, cost me $15 to make. It's a photo album filled with pictures of Sophie growing up. Pictures of her first day of school, her birthday parties, her graduation, all the moments I treasured. I set it down on the gift table next to the other presents, expensive boxes from jewelry stores and department stores, wrapped in fancy paper with elaborate bows. I wonder if she'll even open it, I said quietly. Then I turned to leave. Emma, wait, Sophie screamed, jumping up from her chair. Please don't go. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I stopped and looked back at her. She was running toward me, her wedding dress tangling around her legs, tears streaming down her face. Please, she sobbed. Please forgive me. I was awful to you. I was horrible. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm begging you. Please don't leave like this. I stood there, looking at my daughter, my only child, crying in her beautiful wedding dress, finally seeing me as a real person for the first time in years. And I had to make a choice. What happened next would determine everything. For 20 years, I had imagined this moment 1,000 different ways. Sometimes, in my daydreams, I walked away with my head held high, leaving Sophie to realize what she'd lost. Other times, I forgave her immediately and we hugged and cried together. Sometimes I got angry and told her exactly how much she'd hurt me. But standing there in that silent ballroom with 200 people watching, I realized something important. This wasn't about revenge. This wasn't about proving I was better than her. This wasn't even about the money. This was about whether I had raised a daughter who could learn from her mistakes. A daughter who could grow. A daughter who could become the person I always hoped she would be. I looked into Sophie's tear-filled eyes and made my decision. Stand up, I said gently. Sophie scrambled to her feet, wiping her face with her hands, her mascara running in black streaks down her cheeks. I walked over to her and took both of her hands in mine. They were soft and smooth, so different from my rough, calloused hands that had scrubbed thousands of floors. Sophie, I said quietly, but loud enough for everyone to hear. Do you know why I'm here today? She shook her head, crying too hard to speak. I'm here because you're my daughter, I said. Not because of money. Not because of status. Not because you invited me. I'm here because I love you. I have loved you from the moment you were born, and I will love you until the day I die. Sophie let out a sob that seemed to come from deep in her soul. But love doesn't mean accepting cruelty, I continued. Love doesn't mean letting people treat you like garbage. Love means teaching people to be better. I squeezed her hands. When you were little and you broke something, did I just let it go?
No.
I made you take responsibility. I made you learn from your mistakes. And now you're an adult, and you've made the biggest mistake yet. I know, Sophie choked out. I know, Mom. I've been terrible to you. For years. I was ashamed of you, and I shouldn't have been. You were working so hard to give me a good life, and all I did was complain that we weren't rich. She looked around at all the fancy guests. And now I find out we were rich. We had more than all these people. But I was too blind and stupid to see what really mattered. Mrs. Blackwell made a small offended sound, but Mr. Blackwell put his hand on her arm to quiet her. I called you a fat pig at my own wedding, Sophie continued, her voice breaking. I pointed at you and laughed while everyone else laughed too. What kind of monster does that to their own mother? A person who's been taught by society that appearance and money are all that matter, I said. A person who's been hurt and confused and trying to fit in. A person who made a terrible mistake. I pulled her into a hug. She collapsed against me, crying so hard her whole body shook. But mistakes can be fixed, I whispered into her hair. If you're willing to do the work. We stood there holding each other while the entire ballroom watched. Some people were crying now too. Even Mrs. Blackwell was dabbing at her eyes with a handkerchief. Finally, Sophie pulled back and looked at me. How do I fix this, Mom? How do I make this right? I smiled at her, really smiled for the first time in years. You start by changing how you see people, I said. Not just me. Everyone. The waiter over there who's been serving drinks all night? He has a story. The woman who did your makeup this morning? She has dreams and struggles, and a whole life you know nothing about. I gestured to the room. Every single person you meet is fighting battles you can't see. Rich or poor, famous or unknown, powerful or powerless, we're all human. We all deserve basic respect and kindness. Sophie nodded, wiping her face. I understand. I really do. Do you? I asked gently, because understanding and doing are two different things. I turned to face the crowd. Mr. and Mrs. Blackwell, I said formally. I want to apologize for any deception. I never meant to hide my identity during our business dealings. I simply conduct my affairs through corporate entities for privacy reasons. I hope you can understand that. Mr. Blackwell stepped forward quickly. No, we should apologize. We laughed at you. We were cruel. If you had known I was rich, you would have been nice to me, I interrupted. But you should have been nice to me anyway. Not because of my bank account. Because I'm a human being. He looked down at his expensive shoes, ashamed. You're right, he admitted. We were wrong. Completely, inexcusably wrong. Mrs. Blackwell stepped forward too. I pride myself on being a good person, she said quietly. But tonight I was anything but good. I'm truly sorry, Mrs. Hartman. I nodded, accepting their apologies. Then I turned to the rest of the guests, all those rich people in their designer clothes and jewelry. Let me tell you all something, I said, my voice carrying across the silent room. I've been cleaning offices in this city for 30 years. I've seen all of you at your worst. I've heard the things you say when you think nobody's listening. I've seen how you treat waiters and janitors and delivery people. A few people shifted uncomfortably. And you know what I learned? Money doesn't make you better than anyone else. It just gives you more choices. What you do with those choices, that's what defines your character. I walked over to the gift table and picked up my simple wrapped present. This gift represents every sacrifice I made for my daughter. Every bus ride in the freezing cold. Every night scrubbing floors until my hands bled. Every moment I wanted to quit, but didn't because I had someone depending on me. I handed it to Sophie. Open it, I said. With trembling hands, Sophie tore off the dollar store wrapping paper. Inside was a photo album, nothing fancy, just a basic one from the drugstore. She opened it and gasped. The first page showed her as a baby, wrapped in a blanket, with her father holding her. He was smiling so big, so proud. Dad, she whispered, touching the photo. She turned the pages slowly. There were pictures of every important moment in her life. Birthday parties in our small apartment. Christmas mornings. First day of school. Halloween costumes I'd made by hand. Her high school graduation. And in almost every photo, you could see me in the background. Tired. Worn out. But smiling. Always smiling at her. Every single one of these moments, I said softly. I worked 3 jobs to make happen. That birthday cake? I baked it at 2 a.m. after my cleaning shift. That Halloween costume? I sewed it from fabric scraps. That graduation party? I saved for 6 months to afford it. Sophie was crying again, but different tears now. Understanding tears. I never knew, she whispered. I never knew how much you sacrificed. That's because I never wanted you to feel guilty, I said. I wanted you to just be a kid. To be happy. To feel safe and loved. I put my hand on her cheek. But I also wanted you to grow up strong. To understand that real wealth isn't money. It's character. It's integrity. It's how you treat people when nobody's watching. Daniel, who had been silent this whole time, finally spoke up. Mrs. Hartman, I owe you an apology too. I knew Sophie was ashamed of you, and I never said anything. I never stood up for you. I just went along with it because it was easier. He looked genuinely sorry. I promise you, he continued. I'll do better. I'll be better. And I'll help Sophie be better too. I studied him for a moment. He seemed sincere. Actions speak louder than words, I said. Show me over time, not just tonight. He nodded firmly. I will. I promise. I looked around the ballroom one more time at all those faces, some sympathetic, some still shocked, some ashamed. I didn't come here tonight planning to reveal my secret, I said. I came to watch my daughter get married, to support her on the most important day of her life. Even though she didn't want me here, even though she was ashamed of me. I smiled at Sophie, because that's what real love looks like. It shows up even when it's not wanted. It keeps trying even when it hurts. It never, ever gives up. Sophie threw her arms around me again. I love you, Mom.
I'm so sorry.
I don't deserve you. You're right, I said, making her laugh through her tears. You don't, but you're stuck with me anyway. The room erupted in applause. People were cheering and crying and laughing all at once. The orchestra started playing again, something soft and sweet. Mr. Blackwell approached us, looking nervous. Mrs. Hartman, I have a question about the company purchase, if you don't mind. Call me Martha, I said. Or Marty. And yes, we can talk business. But not tonight. Tonight is for celebrating a marriage. I looked at Sophie and Daniel. You two have a first dance to do, don't you? Sophie laughed.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, we completely forgot. As Sophie and Daniel walked to the dance floor, Sophie turned back to me.
Mom, will you stay?
For the whole reception? Please. Wild horses couldn't drag me away, I promised. And I kept that promise. I stayed for the entire reception. I danced. I ate cake. I laughed and talked with guests who suddenly wanted to know everything about me. But the best moment came near the end of the night. Sophie pulled me onto the dance floor for a mother-daughter dance. As we swayed to the music, she whispered in my ear, "Tomorrow, after the honeymoon, can we talk? Really talk? About everything?" "Yes," I said. "About the money, about the business, about the future. All of it." "And Mom," she said, "can you teach me? How you did it? How you built all of this from nothing? I want to learn. I want to be like you." My heart swelled with pride and love. "I'd be honored," I said. As we danced, I thought about the long journey that had brought me here. From that terrible night when my husband died, leaving me with $247 and a broken heart. Through decades of hard work and sacrifice and loneliness. Through all the nights I cried myself to sleep, wondering if I was doing the right thing. And now, here I was, wealthy beyond my wildest dreams. But more importantly, finally seen by my daughter. Finally valued. Finally understood. The money was nice. The properties and stocks and businesses, they were all wonderful. But this moment, dancing with my daughter as she finally saw me for who I really was, this was worth more than all the millions in my bank account. This was everything. 3 months later, Sophie and I now meet every Tuesday morning at a small coffee shop near my apartment, the apartment I still live in, by the way. Some things don't need to change. I'm teaching her everything I know about investing, about business, about building wealth that lasts. She's a quick learner. She's got her father's brain and my determination. But more importantly, she's learning about character, about treating people with respect, about seeing the humanity in everyone, not just the wealthy. Last week, she volunteered at a homeless shelter. She came to me afterward with tears in her eyes. "Mom," she said, "I met a woman there who used to be a lawyer. She lost everything when her husband died, and she got sick. She could have been me if things had gone differently. Or you." "Exactly," I said. "We're all just one tragedy away from disaster. That's why kindness matters. That's why we help each other." The Blackwell family has changed too. Mr. Blackwell asked me to mentor him on better business practices. Mrs. Blackwell started a charity for working mothers. Daniel volunteers at a job training center. My secret is out now, and, honestly, I'm glad. No more hiding. No more pretending. No more being invisible. I'm Martha Jane Hartman. I'm 66 years old. I'm a former cleaning lady who built an $85 million empire by being smart, patient, and determined. And I'm finally proud to say it out loud. My story isn't just about money. It's about respect. It's about seeing value in every person, regardless of their job or clothes or bank account. It's about understanding that the quiet person scrubbing your floors might just be building an empire while you're not looking. And most of all, it's about love. The kind of love that keeps showing up. The kind that doesn't give up. The kind that believes people can change and grow and become better. Because in the end, that's the only wealth that truly matters. If this story touched your heart, moved you, or made you think differently about the people around you, please hit that like button right now. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe someone who's struggling, or someone who needs a reminder about what really matters in life. And subscribe to this channel so you never miss incredible stories like this one. Your support means everything and helps us keep bringing you these powerful, life-changing tales. Thank you for being here, and remember, everyone has a story worth hearing. Everyone deserves respect. See you in the next story.